Hello everyone, and welcome to my Vennominon-naga deck profile, and also welcome to my brand new channel that I started, almost exclusively for Vennominon-naga. Just in case, hopefully, if reptiles get more support, I will upload more videos here updating Vennominon-naga decks, this Vennominon-naga deck. And yeah, I'm really excited to show you this deck. I am actually planning on I might actually do maybe some other anti-meta deck profiles in the future, but for now I'm just planning on focusing on Vennominon-naga. But anyway, I'm really excited to show you this deck. What this deck mostly revolves around is it uses a lot of the new reptile support that came out, like Echidna here, which can add reptile monsters to your hand equal to the amount of 0 attack point monsters your opponent controls. And then also we have Hydra, which destroys all 0 attack point monsters your opponent controls, and you can draw a card for each, which just is amazing. This is really what Vennominon-naga needed. That way you can get to your key cards in order to summon her. And yeah, so we also use cards like, we use Ojama Trio, which is really helpful for getting your 0 attack point monsters on your opponent's side of the field as well. And yeah, without further ado, let's just get right into the deck. So we're going to be using one Vennominon-naga. And Vennominon-naga, what she does is she gains 500 attack points for each reptile in grave, and is unaffected by everything, or unaffected by card effects. And if she's destroyed by battle, you can banish a reptile from your graveyard. And also, I can't forget to mention that she also can inflict, whenever she inflicts battle damage, you get a hyper venom counter, and if you get 3 of those, you automatically win the duel. So she was a real powerful card. She's not quite as powerful as she once was, because your opponent can have ways to get rid of her, especially with kaijus. Kaijus are super annoying. But I do have a side deck card that I'll show you to help deal with kaijus. Yeah, and you can get a pretty high attack in this deck. There are a lot of reptiles now. So that's it for the main card. And then we have two Vennominon, which is the mini version of Vennominon-naga. And he gains, just like Vennominon-naga, 500 attack for each reptile in grave. And if it's destroyed by battle, you can banish reptiles, summon them back. I was so used to using 3 back in the day, but I have come down to 2 just for consistency. It's a lot more consistent. And something I never realized, and I've been playing this deck for a long time, I never, not until fairly recently, is I didn't see that he cannot be special summoned by monster effects, which is helpful to know and kind of stinks though, but anyway, that's... Oh, and Vennominon is the way you get out of Vennominon-naga, just in case those don't know, with the Trap Rise Snake Deity, which we'll show later. And then we have Triple Gardna. And Gardna is a great card, just to add reptiles and reptilians to his hand is what he does whenever he's destroyed by battle or card effect. And it's really great. It's just a good card. You always want them in your graveyard. You always want at least one. And that way we have Limit Reverse, which can summon him from the graveyard, and you can change him to defense to destroy him. Or if your opponent tries to destroy Limit Reverse, you can chain that to target him in grave, and he would be destroyed, and then you can add a Reptilian hand. So a good way to maintain your hand, add Reptilians to your hand, and also to add the next card, which is Reptilianne Lamia. And Lamia is a great new addition to the deck. Definitely one of the best new engines in the deck, because she is the way you get out Reptilianne Hydra. And whenever you can summon her by when you have all reptiles in your hand and face up on the field, by changing an opponent's monster to 0 attack, and then take damage equal to that monster's original attack, which can be quite painful, but sometimes it can be worth it if it's a high monster attack. But yeah, and she also has a second effect. If she is synchro summoned, you can change 2 of your opponent's monsters to 0 attack. And though you can't activate that effect if you activate her first effect to summon her, it's only 1 of each. But that also does that, her second effect does chain with Hydra. So if you synchro Gardna and Lamia for Hydra, if her second effect activates to change your opponent 2 of your opponent monsters to 0, that will chain with Hydra, and you can destroy 2 of your opponent's monsters. So that's really great. And then next we have 2 Kagetokage, and I kind of like, similar to Vennominon, I cut one down just for consistency, because if you do not have a level 4 in your hand, he is not very useful. But he can be very useful for going for XZs, and of course Links as well. And then we have 2 Skreeches. We run quite a few water monsters in the deck, so it was very helpful for getting more reptile monsters in your grave. and I actually bumped him up to 2 because he was actually being pretty helpful. And also, he's just a good way, just a good card to dump because sometimes he can't be helpful, which is fairly good because you do send a lot of your reptiles in grave. You want to get rid of your reptiles for you can get more reptiles in your graveyard. And then we play a bunch of one-off cards. So we play one Lion Alligator, which is a great card that I honestly never realized before. Someone suggested this on my other channel, but I always thought his effect just affected him. And what his effect is if you control another reptile monster, all your reptile monsters inflict piercing battle damage, which can be great for if your opponent is always playing defense, and if you have Vennominon here, which has a ton of attack. Though Vennominaga is unaffected by his effect because Vennominaga is unaffected by everything, but also works. We have Ojama Trio, so there's a lot of ways you can benefit from that. And then we have one Granadora, and Granadora is just an amazing card, one of the key new cards in the deck, just for you can get your life points back. And that is whenever it's summoned, you gain 1,000 life points. And that's just great because you can take a lot of damage with Lamia, or sometimes you want to keep your life points up if you can't summon her, if you don't have enough life points to summon her. He can help keep your life points up, make you last longer in order to summon Vennominon. Though he does have a side effect, and that's when he's destroyed, you take 2,000 damage. You just have to be wary of that effect, because if your opponent has like a trap that could stop him, just make sure that it's safe when you summon him. And yeah, and then we have another card that goes along with him, and it's my new favorite card, and that is Ipiria, according to Google Translate. And when Ipiria is summoned, you draw a card. And that's actually really great for this deck, for you can get, you just want to draw power. And also, it's only once per turn, so you can only activate that once per turn. And these are cards you can just chain Granadora and Ipiria through, really, the main ways you can spam them out is through one of the Link monsters, Mighty Frame, or M-Frame, was his OCG name. These are cards you always want in your graveyard. Granadora and Lion Alligator and Gardna are water monsters, so you can send them to the graveyard with Skreech, although Ipiria is not a water monster, unfortunately, even though it looks like it slightly. But, yep, that's it for the monsters. Next, we have the spells, and we have a very small spell lineup, but we have triple Viper's Rebirth, which summons a reptile monster from your graveyard. If you have all reptile monsters in graveyard, which is important to take note of sometimes because we do have a couple of non-reptile monsters in the extra deck, which I mentioned, but and also that monster is destroyed at the end phase, which can be really helpful with Vennominon, for you can destroy Vennominon and activate Rise the Snake Deity. And it's just a great way in general, though, to access all your reptile monsters. That way you can summon, the only thing is you can't summon a tuner, so you can't summon Lamia. But sometimes you need to summon, a level 4 in order to synchro for Hydra, and there's just so many situations, obviously, can be helpful just because it gives you access to your reptiles. And then one Snake Rain, and Snake Rain was one of my favorite cards, though sadly I did cut it down to 1 just because Echidna is so great at just adding everything to your hand. So you don't really rely so much on Snake Rain as much, though it can be still a really great card just to get more reptiles to your grave, and that's because I should mention you discard a card to send 4 reptile monsters to your graveyard, and obviously those reptile monsters are going to be the ones that I just showed, mostly like Ipiria, Granadora, Skreech if Skreech is useless, and maybe a turtle as well, or Gardna. And then we have 3 trade-ins, so that way you can, it's a great draw engine for Vennominon, discard your Vennominon. And then 1 Boogie Trap. Boogie Trap is an amazing card someone actually recommended on my other channel, and I really thank them for that because it's a really amazing card, because it discards 2 cards from your hand to set a trap, and you can activate it this turn. And that's great if you have Rise of Snake Deity in your graveyard. You can use it on many other traps, but usually that's the case. And I'm actually really looking for this card, unfortunately, because I do just run 1. Later game, I am looking for this card that way in case I do have Rise of Snake Deity in the graveyard. But because it is a little cloggy, I only run 1. And then, lastly, we run 1 Upstart. And that is it for the spells. Very small spell lineup. Then for the traps, we run 3 Rise of Snake Deity, And this is the card how you summon Vennominon. So obviously it's very important. Though I have seen people use just two of this card, but I think that's for consistency purposes. But I think it's way more consistent to run three in order to get. It's way more consistent to summon Vennominon if you use three. So I definitely prefer using three. And how it works is if your Vennominion is destroyed by card effect, you can special summon Vennominion or Vennominon from your hand or deck. As I stated, I think already. But one of the cool things you can do with Boogie Trap that I forgot to mention is that Boogie Trap can actually discard a trap from your hand if you have a trap already in your grave for its cost, and then you can actually activate that card from your graveyard with Boogie Trap. You can set, let's say, if you discard Rise of Snake Deity, you can set Rise of Snake Deity and activate it this turn. And yeah, Boogie Trap is really great. But like I said, I only use one Boogie Trap just because actually really early game, it's not very helpful, obviously, when you don't have a lot of cards in your hand or stuff in your grave. So that's why I just use one of that. But anyway, onto the other next very important trap. And that is now Ojama Trio, which Ojama Trio is just great to get those 0 attack point monsters in your opponent's side of the field. I wasn't actually a huge fan of the Ojama Trio at first, just because I didn't feel like it fit the theme of the deck, but it's really great, and it's very important, so it's very needed, I think, in this deck with the new cards. Yeah, it also can be used it summons 3 tokens on your opponent's side of the field, so it can be used to stop your opponent too if they're just have 2 monsters on the side of the field if they're planning on special summoning something else. Though also you have to be wary, make sure your opponent can't benefit off the tokens on their turns, maybe activate it later, like if they have those link monsters that require normal monsters to summon them, or if they have a tuner, of course. And then we have triple limit reverse, a great way to get to your reptile monsters in the graveyard, because we run a lot of reptile monsters with 0 and or 1,000 and less attack. And so that would obviously work with the Gardna, and like I mentioned earlier, you can change Vennominon or Gardna, or Vennominon actually is the way to also summon. If you summon Vennominon and change him to defense, you can activate Rise of Snake Deity to summon Vennominon, which is one of the original ways to get out to Vennominon. And it's also a way you can destroy Gardna to add a Reptilian to your hand. It also works on Ipiria, which is the draw 1 card. But though if your opponent is going to destroy this card with somehow, you can you cannot chain it to summon Ipiria real quick you can get that 1 draw, because for some reason Ipiria is just not fast enough to draw that card. But anyway, we play a couple other defensive cards, which is Heavy Storm Duster, and Heavy Storm Duster is great for getting rid of your opponent's annoying traps, spells and traps. And then 2 Storm Mirror Force, which is my preferred card to bounce back monsters on your opponent's side of the field. And then 1 Trap Trick, which Trap Trick is a great card because it gives you access to all these normal spells. What it does is you can banish a normal spell from your deck, and then you can set an additional one from your deck, and it can be activated this turn. So everything other than limit reverse. So you can banish a Rise of Snake Deity to set 1, and then Ojama Trio. So it just gives you access to these cards whenever you need them, like if you need Heavy Storm Duster to pop spells or something. Though if you set Storm and Mirror Force, it might be a little obvious that you're planning to counter your opponent. And then just 1 Solemn Strike. That way you can negate your opponent's monster's effects, which can be sometimes pretty annoying, especially with like all the hand traps that they have that can negate stuff. And yeah, that is it for the trap lineup. And then we'll get on to the extra deck. Now on to the extra deck, which is actually good this time. And before in the past, you really only used for Vennominon, King of the Feral Imps, and that was pretty much it. But now we have Link monsters, and this is when the deck gets fairly complicated, because some of these cards can be a little situational. And it honestly can be a little complicated. It could be just me, because sometimes plays can be hard to differentiate. Though I might make a YGO video. Let me know in the comments if that's okay with you, if you would like that, just to go into more detail. But cards like Echidna is just amazing, the new Reptile links. And what Echidna does is when it's summoned, it can change an opponent's monster to 0 attack. And then its second effect is that you can add reptile monsters from your deck to your hand equal to the amount of 0 attack point monsters on your opponent's side of the field. So it can really just almost add all your reptiles to your hand, which is just amazing. Though sometimes you have to be careful about using her effects. Like her first effect, sometimes you might not want to activate it if you want to keep a high attack point monsters in your opponent's side of the field, either for Lamia, the tuner, for she can special summon herself by changing monsters to 0 attack, or for the next card for you can crash them in, which I'll show you. And her second effect does come with a cost, is you cannot special summon any more other monster from your extra deck other than reptiles. So we do run a few non-reptile monsters in the extra deck, so you want to go for those first before you activate that effect. And also she is fairly weaker, so you might want to get rid of her fast, which you can do with the next card, which is Alien Shocktrooper M-Frame, not Mighty Frame, which was his OCG name that I get mixed up with sometimes. And what he does is he can discard a reptile, and then once you discard that reptile, you can place 8 counters equal to that monster's level on your opponent's monsters. And then if he's destroyed by battle card effect, you can special summon from your graveyard reptile monsters up to the amount of monsters, not 8 counters, I should clarify, your opponent controls with 8 counters on them. So if your opponent has 3 monsters and each one has an 8 counter, you can special summon 3 reptiles from your graveyard. Except you can also use Viper's Rebirth on him to destroy him because he's destroyed at the end phase. And this is just great. You can summon up to 5 reptile monsters, and you can just spam out. Obviously, my favorite combo in the whole deck is going for Granadora and Ipiria, because their effects activate. You can gain 1,000 life points and draw a card. Also, you want to probably go for Lamia and a level 4 for you can synchro for Hydra. And yeah, that's definitely one of the key cards in the deck. I do use 3 of him just because he can be used so much to just tribute your reptile monsters, get more reptiles in the grave. He's also a defensive card. If your opponent destroys him, you can lay out they have a lot of monsters on the field. You can lay out a bunch of reptile monsters in defense to protect yourself. And also just use 2 Echidna just because I should have mentioned Echidna can add so many reptiles to your hand. So really there's no need for any more, I believe. And then we play 1 Skulldread, and Skulldread is great for just if you're looking for a specific card, and you draw 4 cards and shuffle 3 in the deck. That's the main reason why I use them. And then we play 2 Hydras, probably the most important out of all of them. And when he is summoned, he destroys all 0 attack point monsters, as I mentioned, and you can draw a card for each. And now I'm going to get into some pretty complicated stuff. So get ready. Okay, so sometimes there's a specific order. This can be very situational that you want to go into for your cards. Sometimes you do not want to go for Echidna first, even if your opponent has a bunch of monsters on the side of the field, because once you draw all those cards, which is nice, you might not have anything to do after that. Whereas if you go for Alien Shocktrooper first and crash him, which is how I usually destroy him, you can then go for maybe Echidna if you have, like, per se, 4 monsters on the side of the field and your opponent has a bunch of 0 attack point monsters, and then draw your cards, and then maybe you save your Lamia, your level 2 tuner, and then a level 4 to go for Hydra next. Because then you wouldn't draw a reptile, or you would want to search for your reptiles first. That way Hydra can draw non-reptile cards, because why draw reptile monsters when you can just add them to your hand. I hope that made sense. Again, I might do a Yugioh video in better detail, and let me know if you have any questions about that in the comments too. Any questions at all. And then we play 1 Old Entity Hastorr. This is something I'm just trying out, just because I think it's good to have monster negation, because monster negation is just so good to have in the deck. But obviously it's a little difficult to get out, because you can only you need a level 2 monster and a Lamia, level 2 tuner. So only Ipiria can be synchroned with Lamia at that point. But what it does is, if he's sent to the graveyard, which you can send him to the graveyard with the link monsters easily, you can equip him to an opponent's monster and their effect is negated. Also, if you destroy him while he's equipped, you can take control of it. So I think he sounds like he would be really good, so that's why I want to try him out. And I just like him. He is a reptile as well, so And then we play two King of the Feral Imps. And the King of the Feral Imps is used to be one of the main engines in the deck, but he is not as necessary as before, because you want to go for maybe these other monsters. But of course, these other monsters rely on your opponent's monsters being on the field. So he's sometimes just a great default play. Like if you have a Kagetokage and a level 4, you can just summon him on your first turn and add a reptile to your hand, or if you're looking for a specific reptile monster like Vennominon or something. I'm going to play one number 60. Number 60 is a great card just to draw cards. What I mostly use him for is to discard draw 2 cards and then discard 1. I usually only use him as a last resort if I'm really looking for that key card like Rise of Snake Deity or Viper's Rebirth, because he is a non-reptile monster, and also you have to skip your draw phase, next draw phase. So he's a non-reptile monster, so he could clog up. All these next cards could potentially clog up for you can't use Viper's Rebirth. And if you're gonna go for him or something, make sure you go for it. Again, I just want to mention before you use Echidna as a second effect, because you can't summon non-reptile monsters once you activate her effect. And then we run one Crooked Cook. Crooked Cook is I really like Crooked Cook as a card. But I don't know if he's exactly what I'm looking for, something a little better than him. But what he does is you can just detach a material to destroy all cards on your side of the field, which you have to be wary not to use. If you have traps set, to be careful with that. But I mostly use them to destroy Mighty Frame, and that way you can get access if your opponent doesn't have anything to crash him in, which is how I usually destroy Mighty Frame. You can go for him instead. And also he can become kind of like Vennominon-aga for a bit. If you have no cards on the field, he's unaffected by everything. And then we play one Tornado Dragon to get rid of your opponent's spells and traps, and also your own, because he can get rid of if your opponent has like a face-up spell that prevents you from doing stuff, like those cards that banish. Also destroy cards like Limb in Reverse. If you in case you summon Vennominon-aga on your turn with it and you can't change him to defense, he can just pop it, and that way you can activate Rise of Snake Deity in order to summon Vennominon-aga. And lastly, we just play one Exciton Knight, and Exciton Knight is just great if you go into those if you get into those sticky situations and your opponent has a lot of cards on their field. That way it can be a great card to destroy all your monsters, all your opponent's cards. And yep, that's it for the extra deck. Finally, we just play a few, I just have a few side deck cards. I should really find more good ways to prevent your monsters, your opponent from doing anything terrible to Vennominon-aga, but Imperial Iron Roll to prevent banishing, and then one Master Restrict, or maybe you would probably run more, I just have one at the moment, but one Master Restrict in order to stop your opponent's kaijus, because it allows, or it prevents any player from tributing monsters under any conditions. So yeah, I like to find more cards, that way you can stop your opponent. And yeah, that is it for the deck. Sorry it ran on for a little longer. It's hard to, there's a lot of things to explain. But that's it. So please tell me what you think. And thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if any cards you recommend, because that's what I love. I love finding new cards that I've never heard of before, because a lot of the cards that I even added in this deck are from people who recommend cards in the comments. And yeah, like I said, I might do a few other anti-meta deck profiles here, so maybe look out for that as well. I'm planning on maybe doing a Crash Bug video that actually turned out pretty well. But yeah, for now, I'll look forward to seeing you on the next video. And yeah, bye-bye.